I have to admit, I entered this program without a real picture of what design actually is, particularly as something fundamentally different from art or technology. I never really sat down and parsed out any differences in the way I viewed a Sol LeWitt wall drawing versus a Dunn and Raby installation versus a Johnny Ives iMac. This is the diagram of design I submitted to Lisa right after this class began. It's kind of pretty. It shows a number of things that remain key sources of personal inspiration, and there are a few insightful comments in there right around the middle, if you can even read them. But it doesn't actually say all that much about design, relative to the amount of information it contains. I think in a sense this illustrates a quality I've recognized in myself for a long time. You could call it perfectionism, or OCD, or being a dick if you're not feeling generous. A desire to make everything I create the most finished, polished, objectively best it can possibly be. This can be a good thing in a lot of situations, but it can lead down some pretty unproductive paths as well. Reductionism, wanting to break every argument down to its components, then reassemble them in the simplest possible fashion. Speculation, looking so far beyond the immediate that my ideas cannot possibly be implemented in the real world. Doer's block, for want of a better word, leaving most of my ideas unexplored, those I do explore unfinished due to their imperfections, their inherent impurities. I've always liked answers, or even better, solutions. And maybe that's what I thought design was, or good design at least, finding elegant solutions. Oh hell, let's go all the way with it. Perfect solutions. Too bad they don't exist. We haven't even really defined what design is. So let's look at my three favorite academic definitions of design to emerge from all this reading and thinking we've done this semester. Klaus Krippendorff designs it with carefully weighted words and clever punctuation. It's a making sense of things. Donald Shun simultaneously waxes philosophical and practical. It's a conversation with the materials of a situation. And Richard Buchanan does it both actionably and in contrast with what it isn't. So it's concerned with the particular, and it's not a science. Though the phrasing is different, these definitions are at their core the same. Design is about creating specific things, but it is also about crafting an understanding of the context for these creations. What something is corresponds to the sum total of its contexts. It's quite a statement. It would certainly seem to preclude any type of objective perfection. On the contrary, this way of defining a thing, a designed object, advocates a new philosophy far removed from the product iteration cycles of the modern commercial world that form my personal background. An ecological model of creativity, if you will, where form follows function is deemed both reductive and obsolete. Instead, form follows meaning. So designers must understand not only the history of their field and the scope of their products, but they must also inhabit the minds of their users and in so doing reverse engineer the problems they're attempting to solve. This opens up the possibility of an ethical discussion that goes far beyond the knee-jerk mention of sustainability that you usually hear after any reference to design ethics. There's a bigger issue at play here than this one specific concern. From John Walker's wonderful essay on Beck's London Underground diagram, every picture conceals as much as it reveals. Whatever we design, from information images, to video games, to kindergartens, we practice an inherently impure art. As a result, every design decision, in its role as a definition of context, is by its very nature an ethical one. This is true, at a most basic level, because we live in a complex world. As Mark Taylor points out, in addition to being universal, complexity is both emergent, and thus unpredictable, and seemingly inevitable, as it's the product of evolution. As a result, complexity encompasses all manner of systems, and it is this fact that forces designers to take ethical positions as they set the boundaries of their problems. But it may also be this very complexity that can free such design from the weight of its own expectations. Indeed, Taylor goes so far as to argue that one of the primary reasons for the emergency we're facing is the insistence that systems totalize. What Taylor recognizes, along with such varied thinkers as Ray and Charles Eames, Rem Koolhaas, even the great philosopher Michael Crichton, is that complexity holds the seeds of order, or at least the possibility for self-organization, if observed at just the right scale. This type of thinking is ultimately anti-schematic, as it cannot permit the existence of absolute truth, be it theological, ideological, or physical. What seems random at one scale reveals a pattern at another, before receding back into complexity upon further scaling. As they seem to whenever we delve deep enough, my thoughts turn neither to design, nor art, nor technology, but to physics. Is the unifying theory of physics the thing that will reconcile the complexity of post-quantum postmodernism with everything that came before not a unifying theory of physics or art or music or design at all? Is it a unifying theory of patterns? A unifying theory of complexity? That's all fine and dandy on a purely theoretical level, but where the hell does it leave us? Well, we've established that no matter how you look at it, this universe we live in is inconceivably complex. There's more data in one star or one single cell than any mind, any society even, can ever fully comprehend. So to begin to act, to actually start to design, we need to define the particulars of the situation we seek to act upon and the scale at which we will choose to view our actions. At this point, the actual designing is simple, and therein lies its great power, for it cannot get lost in perpetual loops of theorizing and still call itself design. We make something. We act. We put forth a proposition, observe it, adjust our assumptions, then act again. But action alone does not suffice, for as we've learned, it is action without reflection, iteration in the name of reduction or iteration for iteration's own sake that has created so many of the problems we face in this century. So even more important than a designer's ability to act is his willingness to listen. And thus we arrive at a new diagram, where design emerges as the simplest of cycles, an unending process of improvement, of defining, making, listening, and redefining. Note that I choose not to include finite outs, products, or publications. This was not an oversight, nor was it idealism. In this universe of infinite complexity that we are only just coming to understand, no design can ever be self-contained, or even properly said to be finished. We need merely revise a few particulars, or change our field of view, when we see our answers in a new light. We reveal an entirely new set of questions. This implies the impossibility of a perfect solution, for in this world of infinite complexity, there is no correct scale, no right context. So perhaps we should stop wasting our energy trying to solve problems at all, and instead start focusing on understanding and affecting the new problems our designs cannot help but create. This allows no room for perfectionism, that most nefarious and paralyzing form of egotism, and we're thus freed from the age-old temptation to strive for this unattainable and unproductive goal. Design becomes, at its very core, not a solving of problems, but an exploration of possibilities. I said at the beginning that this would be anti-reductive, so let me close with a catchphrase, 5 words of advice to design this century by. Don't answer. Ask better questions. Thank you.